kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. How most of you be hearing this on Friday or Saturday, so happy weekend. Got Caleb Holley back on the show for real this time. We're Starlink buddies now as well as cowboy buddies, so it's a crazy world we live in, but I love the mix of old school and then all this new technology. Caleb, you there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Oh, there we go.
I
Okay.
thought it bumped for a second, but yep, I'm in here.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's pretty neat because you're out in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming. I'm out in not quite as middle of nowhere, Nevada, but still pretty damn rural. And we got like blazing fast internet and
Yeah.
working horseback for a living.
Does it sound a little bit better than the last time we tried this?
Yeah. That I was having audio issues on my end too, and I was having hell. But yeah, I was really bummed too because I was looking forward to just shooting the shit with you, and then technology's is a bear sometimes, but man, when it works,
Yes,
it's
sir.
pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. So how's Wyoming? You guys get thawed out yet?
Mostly, yeah. We've been up here. We've been in the low to mid 60s. I don't think we've quite got up to 70 yet, but we've kind of got close, and been having a few little spring thunder showers, and you can just about hear the grass growing.
Nice. You're around Saratoga?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's like just a big freaking plateau up there. Like you're on literally on top of the world in that
Yeah,
part of the
and where I'm at, I'm on the eastmost end of the ranch, and I'm just below the west side of Elk Mountain.
Oh, okay.
So I get all that weather.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that stretch of I-80 where they have the snow fences like a mile back because the wind blows snow so damn bad there.
Yeah, and this winter it got so bad because we've got the same snow fences on the highway going from 80 to Saratoga. They were drifted over.
No shit.
It was unreal.
That's crazy. We went over the hill for spring break over to Windsor, and we went over 88, and son of a bitch, I've never seen so much snow.
Oh, I'll bet.
They those big brown national forest signs.
Yeah.
All you could see of those was like the top right corner. Like the rest of it was just buried.
Yeah.
It was wild. I was seeing, I forget who shared it on Facebook today, but there was a bunch of pictures of them digging trails out for and they're just pushing cows through walls of snow. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I saw those same ones. So that's just over the mountain to the east from me.
Okay. Yeah.
And like I said, we're pretty well. I mean, we've got some snow drifts in the shade and whatnot, but on the east side of the mountain, they got it way worse than we do.
Jeez. Yeah, that's wild. Wyoming's tough country. It's some of my favorite to drive through, but man, it's tough country. There's a reason there's not many people that live there.
Exactly. Yeah, you spend a winter here and you figure out pretty quick why it's the least populous state in the lower 48.
Yeah, and I saw another thing on Facebook, and it was funny how many people from Wyoming were in the comments on it, but it was like the top I think it was like top 6 windiest states in the country, and Wyoming wasn't anywhere on the list. And I was like, bull fucking
Really?
shit. Bullshit. Your list is inaccurate, sir.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a minute.
No, and Colorado wasn't on the list either. And I was like, that bullshit. You guys are out of your mind. Like they had the
Yeah, they
Dakotas.
pulled that out of their ass.
Yeah, they had the Dakotas and Nebraska and Montana on it, but
Hmm.
not Wyoming, and Kansas was on there. They didn't have Wyoming. They didn't have Colorado. I don't think they had Oklahoma either. Of course, I don't know what. I imagine Eastern Oklahoma doesn't get all that windy, but
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really been down that way, but
I haven't either. Not a whole lot, anyways. But um, yeah, I know because like the west side of Colorado blows quite a bit too.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, the east side, that's all it does is blow. And
Oh yeah.
and Wyoming, same like yeah, Wyoming is just windy everywhere.
Yeah, when if we have a day where the wind doesn't blow, everything kind of falls over.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know what to do. Like you
Yep.
get way you get a little top heavy because you're so used to leaning into the wind.
Yes, sir.
Horses, how do the horses take it and that because wind makes a horse pretty goofy if they're not used to it.
Yeah, they seems like most of them out here just kind of have to get used to it pretty quick because it's just there all the time.
Yeah. I know when I was in Kansas, it was only those like those really really windy days, like
Yeah.
just the it the day you try not to get horseback if you don't have to. And
Yes, sir.
that those days the horses get pretty goofy, but yeah, after a while they get used to it. They don't like it, but they get used to it, I guess.
No, that's fact. Yeah, yeah, and they kind of if you got to turn around and go into it, that doesn't make them too happy.
No, not a bit. But they'll yeah, it's I don't know. The wind's just it's I don't know. You get accustomed to it, I guess. I don't know if you ever get used to it because it eats at you. Oof.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And like people have asked me, since I've been out here, how the wind compares to back there in Nevada or whatever, and I said, well, I've seen it get as windy, but it doesn't stay as long.
Yeah.
We'll have that wind, maybe we'll have it for a half a day or a day. And, since I've been out here, you'll have 3, 4 days where the wind just howls and it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
when it finally slows down to like 30 mile an hour, that's a nice day where you can go do something.
yeah, that's for sure. And like we had the second highest snowfall in recorded history in this area this winter.
No
Uh,
shit.
and that was bad enough, but we had so much strong winds with it that the drifting was by far the worst part. And there's one day, oh, I don't remember when it would have been. It probably would have been in February, I want to say, but sometime this winter. And I woke up in the middle. Then there was supposed to be a storm blowing in, but I woke up in the middle of the night because the house was shaking.
Yeah. I remember some of those days in Colorado and Kansas. It just it's like 2011, 2012 when the last big drought was at kind of the tail end.
Yeah,
And it was just like there was nothing green in the high plains area. Like there was nothing green except, like irrigated corn.
sure.
Everything else was just various shades of yellow and brown. And the like anytime the wind blew, the dust was blowing with it. And it was miserable. And I think they're kind of back to that point right now. But we we had this little like how it was like a club car, I think, one of those golf cart.
Oh yeah,
But it was a side by side with the with a bed on it, and we had a little had a little welding trailer that we pulled behind it, and you can smell those dust storms rolling in before the wind ever hits you. You can just
Mm.
it just smells like plowed dirt all of a sudden, and then just boom, then the wind hits, and you see it looks like a cloud on the horizon, but it's just dirt. And then you smell it, and then then the wind finally hits you, and you're just like, holy
Yeah.
fuck. And one of the Mexican guys that was on the maintenance crew, I guess he was the maintenance crew at that point in time. He you could see this dust storm blowing in, and he was trying to get back to the shop on that little club car, and it looked like a scene out of the Mummy, when they're out running the sandstorm
Oh yeah.
there, and it looked exactly like that. He was, I mean, the thing only went about 15 mile an hour, and he trying to outrun this dust storm. Just barely made it to the shop before it really hit.
Hmm.
I got stuck in one of those. I was getting done for the day, and I just put my horse up, and I was headed back into the barn, and that that dirt hit, and I just had to hold on to the fence. I was like, just duck your head and wait till there's a little bit of a gap, and then ran into the barn.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Nah, that sucked. Yeah, I those those old timers that lived through the 30s, that was something else. It
Yeah,
was just
no kidding.
they used to have to drag a chain behind them to ground out the vehicle when those dust storms would blow through, because all that topsoil was so magnetized that it'd short out their cars.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, it was wild.
That is wild. Hmm.
I how was it up in that country before this year? Was it pretty decent on grass, or they in a drought too?
They're kind of in a drought, and that was actually kind of funny for me because I came out here in the summer of 2021 from
Mm,
Nevada, and everybody was talking about how hot and dry it was, and I didn't really see what the problem was, but it's just for here it was pretty droughted out, and
yeah.
like last year, water was a real struggle. We still had moderate feed, but we struggled a lot with water on some of our desert ground.
Mm.
And
How big a country is that? Like what's a circle out on desert look like for that part of the world?
let me think. I'm like I said, on my side, on the east side, we're a little bit smaller, but if you flatten the south, we'd probably be bigger.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and then you get out west, I don't know what it'd be miles. We've got some pretty good sized country out there, and it's just big sagebrush flats mostly.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, they've got some pretty decent water out there. They've got they call it Sage Creek, and it flows through a lot of that country, and it's not much of a creek, but there's usually water in it. Uh,
Yeah.
but like all the dirt tanks were dry, and there's a lot of springs that were dry or just mud puddles, and we kind of struggled with that a lot last year. But this year, uh, so in fact, so my boss, because I've only been here for 2 years, there's a dirt tank out in one of my pastures. We just got turned out the other day, and there's a big old dirt tank out there, and it's full. And he said that's the first time in I think 12 years he's seen water in it.
Really?
So
That's wow. That
yeah,
that must have been a pretty good, either a pretty good drought, or or one hellacious
I
one.
think I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
And like talking with a buddy of mine who's been in this country a while, he said, "Yeah, that's the thing. Is when you get in a drought like that, it takes a hell of a winter to get you out of it."
Yeah. Well, and it takes so much more nowadays when with all all the wells that they drill for irrigation and shit.
Oh
It
yeah, That's one good thing. We don't have so much of that out here. There's a few pivots scattered here and around, but most everything around here that's irrigated is flood.
Yeah.
But
Um, yeah, there's I was hearing the other day, like down in Arizona, there's something like 10,000 acres of irrigated alfalfa that just goes straight to Saudi Arabia. And
really,
yeah, and I mean it's fucking Arizona. There's
yeah,
not a lot of water there already, but they're using Arizona water to grow alfalfa for Saudi Arabian dairies.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, I was like that. Maybe that shouldn't. That maybe that's not a great idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I that gets real tricky when you have when you have a bunch of foreign countries owning agricultural land like that.
Yeah, that gets a little sketchy.
I'm not much for the government outlawing a whole lot of anything, but I'd kind of be on board with that. Like foreign companies probably shouldn't, or foreign countries shouldn't own agricultural land.
Yeah, and if they're going to, there should at least be kind of a maybe an acreage limit on that.
Yeah, no shit. Or I mean, I have no problem with a guy exporting his alfalfa, but
Right.
I'm not a fan of the Saudi Arabian company owning the land and then exporting the
Well,
product.
yeah, there's a big difference there. That
Yeah,
yeah, I'd have to
yeah,
agree with you on that.
yeah. But yeah, that Colorado River deal is going to be a. I mean, it's already a pretty major issue, but with this year, it'll recharge pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, but it's funny they always blame like uh like alfalfa farmers and some sort of agriculture industry, and then they never mention how that like there's never a brown blade of grass on a golf cart anywhere or on a golf course anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
There's and
Exactly.
then
And good
every,
grief, I'd like to know the figures on how many acres are under golf courses.
right, and like so much water they use, and then on
Oh
like
yeah.
everybody in the city's got a pool in their backyard, and it's like, yeah,
Yep.
I mean, if you want to point fingers, I mean, like, it's not that we don't use a lot of water, we do, but we're actually doing something with it. you know,
Well, yeah, and if I mean, I suppose some from golf courses does too, but if you think about swimming pools and lawns and things like that, not a lot of that water ever makes it back to the aquifer.
no, no,
You
it's yeah, it's kind of wastewater, and then yeah, I don't know, and then I mean, it's like when with flood irrigation, the further on down the stream you are, the less the quality of water is.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so like even that like the wastewater that gets pushed back into the river, well, like the farmer down the way that's less quality water he's got.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, it's just I don't know. There's it seems like they want to point the finger our way, but they I mean that's a productive use of water, and I'd say golf course kind of is too. There's a lot of business that gets settled on golf courses and whatnot, and
Sure.
they turn a profit. The pools and whatnot do too, but I just like when you put all that compared to like growing feed for cattle, or for any sort of livestock that gets made into feed or food for human consumption, I think I consider that a lot more of a productive use of a resource.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if we don't eat, none of this happens.
Right. And so like, prioritize drinking water and sewage for the cities, of course.
Oh,
You can't have the cities getting any grosser than they already are.
yeah. That's a fact.
And yeah, so you gotta prioritize that, and then productive use of that water. That's the thing. And I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know. I don't think anybody's got a real great solution to it. But there's a lot more people living out west, and that Colorado River is getting pretty strained.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, shoot, just look at what's, I don't remember how long ago it's been, but look at Owens Valley and Independence Valley down there in California and what it
Hmm.
used to be, what it is now.
Yeah. Well, they were. Remember when they were gonna build that like crypto city somewhere? I think it was kind of somewhere over by Reno, and it
No,
was it was
I don't know about that.
yeah, yeah. So they were gonna build this like futuristic city, and it was gonna be like a bunch of tech startups and cryptocurrencies, and it sounded awful, honestly.
Yeah,
it's,
that sounds terrible.
it's like it sounded just like a version of the Jetsons, but with people like Mark Zuckerberg walking around everywhere, you know?
That's,
And it
that's
just like sounded like one of the worst places I've ever heard. But they were gonna they were gonna get their water from up at Gerlach and pipe it down
hmm.
to this like future city. But I don't think that ever went through. I don't know if like anything was ever agreed on or whatnot. But as far as I know, there's been hasn't been any sort of construction like that. But
Well, we'll say that's a good thing.
I think so. I mean, I'm all about bringing some business to Nevada, but that one. It seems a little weird. It seems a little like culty and like not the
Yeah,
good kind, like not even the good kind of cult where there's a bunch of sex. That one just seems like a bunch of like a bunch of autistic nerds.
yeah, that sounds like a horrible idea.
Mm, yeah, it's just it sounded really weird. And then like I've never been up to Gerlach, but from what I understand, there's not much of anything up there.
Oh
And
no, oh no, there's not much at all up there.
so so they were just like, yeah, we'll just take the water from up there. We'll buy it from there. And I'm like, well, that kind of that'll suck for the three people that live there, but
Yeah, I can't imagine that there's that much water that they could get up there anyway.
yeah, I mean that's the Black Rock, right?
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, it's yeah. So I don't know. I don't. It was yeah. It's hard to imagine that there'd be enough for a full city. Um. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird that
Yeah,
this.
that's super weird.
I guess the good thing about being a desert is like it kind of deters people from living there just strictly on the water issue alone.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of people get tired of well, I sent last time I was in Nevada, I sent a bunch, but I think I just put it on my Snapchat or whatever. But I was like, one thing that some people fail to realize about Nevada is just how fucking brown it is.
Mm-hmm. It is very brown and
Brown and gray and
yeah. And once you get outside of like the Reno Tahoe area, it is a long way to anywhere. I mean
yes,
it is just a long way from like you get once you get outside of Reno, like Fernley's about an hour outside of Reno, and then it's like another hour to Lovelock, and then it's like boom, 2 to 3 hours on the interstate.
yeah,
And then you get like central Nevada, and man, that's even further apart. And then yeah, southern. I mean, it is a long ways to anywhere outside of the like I said Reno Tahoe, and then I guess Elko. There's a few towns a little bit closer together, but even so, they're not very very close.
No, no, and besides Elko, not much up there has any size to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's all little bitty towns and they're yeah, they're a long way apart. I I thought where did you grow up at?
I grew up mostly there around Dayton,
Oh,
and
okay.
uh, and when I was a little bit younger, my dad was working for state parks. Well, shoot, you know because you're from around there. You know where Weeks is in Buckland Station.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess until I was 10 or 11, we lived in that house behind Buckland Station there.
Oh, no shit.
Yep.
Huh. That's
I
pretty
was gonna
cool.
I was gonna say green, but I don't know what color it is now. So
That's pretty cool though.
yeah, it was. It was a super cool place, and with the wildlife refuge there, and we'd go out there and ride and screw off, and it was a pretty cool place.
Nice. Yeah, it's really funny how Nevada is it's some of like in spots is like some of the most lush green beautiful places on earth and then just desolate
Yeah,
in others.
and
Like
and real close together.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh yeah, cuz like Carson Valley might be one of the most picturesque beautiful places on earth. Like that it's a little
Absolutely.
the views kind of sucks nowadays cuz there's too many damn houses, but uh man, I'd have loved to seen that like when they were, the like the first Mormons put in that, that that Mormon station up there at Genoa.
Oh, it would
Uh,
have been something.
just something else. But yeah, and then you go just, you know, 40 miles and it is nothing but just desert as far as you can see and not not much green around it. And it's yeah, it's funny how quick it changes.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's nowhere else quite like it.
No, there's it's 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 pretty unique just yeah, that high desert country. It's well then I mean kind of the same way like Elko Lamoille area like
Oh yeah.
shit, those rubies are pretty.
Oh
And
yeah. You
then
can go up Lamoille in the fall
yeah, or in the
or
spring
or
like when it's
spring. But
yeah, when it's just greening up and there's still snow on top and like a lot of snow on top, but everything's starting to green up and like man, it's some of the most beautiful country I've seen. And then yeah, not very quick or not very far, and it goes right into big desert.
yeah, yeah,
It's oh, it's interesting. It's a I like Nevada a lot. I'm a Colorado kid through and through, but Nevada's pretty damn cool.
yeah. I love Nevada too. Like I mean I'm kind of like I. There's very few places that I've ever been that I haven't found something to like about, but Nevada's pretty special.
Yeah, I that southeast corner of Colorado is always my home. It's where I grew up, and it's not that country ain't good for much, but it made some pretty tough people, the ones that stuck out the dust bowl, and it's it's a different type of country, and like I said, it's kind of pretty in its own ways, and if you get some rain, that buffalo grass is real pretty in the spring, but
Oh, I'll
that
bet.
that rain's pretty few and far between,
Well,
and
the farthest southeast in Colorado that I've been would have been oh good grief, I can't remember the name of it right now. We went down and it wound up being a disaster, but we went down to brand some calves for some folks down there last year, me and a buddy of mine. And because buddy of ours that had been day working down there called us and said, "Oh yeah, we're gonna brand these calves." And they yeah, that we don't need to talk about that, uh, but good grief, I'm trying to remember the name of that place. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was down there starting to get pretty well into the prairie,
Yeah.
and I thought, man, this would have been. I mean, it was cool country anyway, but I thought, man, oh man, if a guy could have seen this before they fenced it up.
I know it. I like to be Charlie Goodnight or Kit Carson out on those on that short grass prairie when it was just the Indians and buffalo. I mean,
Oh man,
that'd have been cool to see.
it sure would have.
I was pretty fortunate, there that Santa Fe Trail goes right through where I grew up and where I lived there in Kansas for a while. And so like there's a lot of cool historical stuff like that around there
Well, for sure.
and there was it was really only like a 20 or 30-year heyday of like the true open range, ranches there. And once you get on the at least on the east side of the Rockies. And then Nevada and Utah, that was, there's still quite a bit of open range, but yeah, it was like a 30-year period on the prairie before before the homesteaders caught up with them, where it was just a heyday of just open range cowboy.
Yep.
And like that would have been fun.
Oh, it would have been like two of my favorite books are Trails Plowed Under by Charlie Russell and We Pointed North, Teddy Blue Abbott, and it's just like, man, if you could have been alive then and or even just to see it.
Yeah. I know it. I was talking to that history professor the other day on Packentown, and I would have loved to seen the Chicago Union Stockyards at its heyday.
Oh
Just
man, that
would have been so cool.
amazing.
Like see the 8-10 story packing houses and like follow the carcass all the way down to
Yeah.
just see how all that shit worked. I mean, and like I think he said it was in 1920, like 1 or 2 was like the peak day for cattle, and they received 122,000 head of cattle in one day.
Mm.
Uh, it's like I forget how many he said they shipped, but that's so many,
Yeah,
many beefs.
that's staggering.
That's I mean, I worked at a 120,000 head feedlot, and you're just like, so they received all of these cows in one day at the Union Stockyards. Like that's so many cattle.
That's a hell of a lot of cattle.
Holy shit! That's yeah. I'd have loved to seen that in the heyday. Any of those old stockyards back in the day. I'd love to see them in operation. I bet that was kind of like the feedlot job back in the day was stockyard rider.
Oh, maybe so.
I wouldn't be surprised. Or I guess it'd be kind of a mix between a pen rider and like a sale barn worker.
Yeah.
But
I never thought of that.
yeah, where were the big stockyards on the West Coast? I'm sure San Francisco had one at some
I
point.
was just gonna say it would have been San Francisco for sure.
Probably Sacramento too, huh?
That was gonna be That I would imagine it would have to have been Sacramento and San Francisco and oh shoot.
Um,
Maybe
when
Los Angeles.
I was gonna say when did LA get big? Because it was for a long time. I think it was just like a little bitty sea town, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, and so do you ever read any Arnold Rojas?
No, he's on my list. I forget
Oh
who
yeah.
told me.
Yeah, he's good. You'd like him. And it was cool cuz he was around kind of the tail end of the big ranches, the real big ranches in California and stuff. And so he got to see some of that. But he talked to all the old timers And so he's got old California stories. It's really neat. But he, and I don't know if it's true or not, but if it isn't, it ought to be, that the first law passed and like put on the books in Los Angeles when it was just, just a bunch of adobe huts, was that there was to be no tailing of steers on the main street.
That's funny. That's funny.
Like, man, I'd have liked to have seen Los Angeles when it was like that.
I know. I was thinking, well, that book that history professor wrote, with Dominic, he was talking before they built that stockyard there. There was like a half dozen stockyards throughout Chicago because it was kind of a boom town,
Right.
at the time, and so they had, like, I think they said like 6 different stockyards throughout the city, and so the Packers would have to go to each one of these yards to get their order for the day, and then they'd just drive them through the streets of Chicago back
Oh,
to the
man.
packing plant.
Oh,
I'm like, that would have been a fucking circus. I would have loved every minute of it.
oh man.
Yeah,
Oh,
until they built the Union stockyard and centralized it all. It was it was kind of like Chicago was like a real cow town back in the day. Like there was that was like Cowboy Central before, pre, I guess, pre World War, or the Civil War, I guess.
mm, that's wild.
Yeah, all like the Midwestern farmers drove their cattle into Chicago,
Mm.
and for the yeah, it's wild how quick the all that changed with locomotives and then trucks. I mean,
Oh, for sure.
it made, it made things way different. Like it changed the breeds, it changed how except for places like Arizona and Nevada and Utah and a few other big spreads elsewhere, but where they're just big enough spreads where and far enough away from, you know, railheads, I guess. Like they really haven't changed how they've done things ever, but outside of those, handful of big outfits, but boy, the trucks changed everything, the fence changed everything.
Oh, for sure. And that's one cool thing I do like about it here is we because so many, talking about how trucks have changed things, like so many places will just truck stuff around the place,
Mhm.
and we'll do a little of that depending on what and where we're going, but most all of our stuff, wherever it's going, it's going to walk there.
Yeah,
and I like that.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a good thing to it's a good skill to have to be able to drive cattle, and keep them pointed, and it's and in ways, it's kind of a lost skill. I mean, well, for one, you got to have a big enough outfit to be able to trail them instead of just,
Yeah, you got to have some place to go with them.
yeah, yeah, and it's yeah. So, and nowadays it's usually like a half day. You got to drive them something instead of, where it could be back in the old days, and in different places it could be a week before you get to where you're going.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. That's yeah, you always kind of miss those days, but then you're also like, yeah, we also got it quite a bit better nowadays than they did. They had all the fun, but we got a lot of cool shit nowadays too. We just don't.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, shoot, I'm sitting here in Wyoming and you're sitting there in Nevada, and we're conversating. So,
I know, and I put my I put that snaffle bit in my in a horse's mouth for the first time today. from a buddy I met through this
Oh yeah,
podcast.
I seen that picture. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, and that freaking Matt Wilson, I love that guy.
Oh,
I
he's
just
a pretty cool cat.
I was just needing I was wanting to get a new staffel, and I didn't know what I wanted on it. And I was like, "Hey, if you got any ideas that you've kicked around and haven't put on silver yet," I said, "I need a new snaffle." And he said, let me think on it." And then he was shooting some ideas at me. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And then he'd send me something else. I'm like, "That sounds cool too." I don't know, man. Just do your thing. And then he's like, "Send me a selfie. I got an idea." Okay. So yeah, then he put my portrait on there and vote McKinley 2024.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Might be the dumbest thing that I own, but I love it. And it's a really nice bit. My mayor was responding to it real nicely. So it's people might think I'm a little vain, but I just think it's really funny.
Oh, it is funny.
It's like I said, it might be the dumbest thing I own, but it cracks me up.
Well, on one thing's for damn sure, nobody else has one.
Yeah, not another person in the world has that. So it's yeah, that's what I love about Matt Wilson is whatever you get from him, that like there's not another one like it.
Absolutely, yeah. I need to order another bit from Matt. I've had several, and I need to order another one.
Yeah, he's yeah, him and Rachel, they're good people. They're some of my favorite people on
for
earth.
sure. So they're in Elko was actually the first time I met him in person,
Yeah.
and I was just tickled because I was like, yeah, I was like, yep, they're just as cool as I always thought they were.
I know. That's the same way when I met him, like I said, been 3 years ago. Yeah, it was the COVID year.
Okay.
We were the only live show in Elko that year. And I hadn't met him in person yet, and they we were all staying at Stockman's, and my dad was there, and then yeah, the Wilsons rolled into town, and we were sitting down in the cafe there at Stockman's getting all sorts of rowdy at like 11:30 in the morning, and
That'll
I was
happen.
like, yeah. I was like, yeah, these are my kind of people. I like these guys a lot.
Yeah, they're good folks.
Yeah, just really cool, fun hang with them, and then yeah, they're so talented that
Oh yeah,
just yeah
yeah, they're
there's
good.
they're some of my favorites. And yeah, and then Matt's stuff is just so it's like cool and weird. Like you know,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
it just like I would have never thought of that. And it just yeah, he made an alien bit, he made a mermaid bit, made a rat rod bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
Made
yeah, and he did for a buddy of mine. I think you know him too. He lives not too far from there. He did all the Space Goat hardware.
yeah. Yeah. And then my favorite one that he did was the Wile E. Coyote bit.
Yeah,
And
that one's a classic.
yeah, and he stamped it Acme. And I was just like that.
Yeah,
That's
he stamped Acme Spade bit.
it was awesome. Yeah,
That is.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's a goober, but like his stuff is just cool.
When I saw that one, I was like, man, I wish I'd have thought of that.
I know it. I've got he made the Burnin' Daylight bit. My wife ordered it for it's a floating spade, and it's again like that's one that nobody else has, and it's pretty cool. I was thinking that today. I've got 2 of his bits now hanging in my in my tack room. I've got another couple custom bits, and like 10 years ago probably it was nothing but classic equine and whatever. Maybe I had a Carrie Kelly, maybe, but Couldn't afford anything. Now I was like, I've got some decent tack. I'm,
Heck
I'm
yeah.
no, I don't have like the wall of bits like some guys have. I've got kids, so I don't. I got to spend it on stuff besides bits. But I was looking at it. Yeah, it was like a nice, cool, crisp morning. Um, Rigged up a new snaffle, and I was like, yeah, life's pretty good. I can't complain right now. I got some pretty nice tack. I got some pretty decent horses. I cuss them a lot, but all in all, they're pretty all right horses for the most part. And life's all right.
You bet. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now. I'm just glad that it's finally starting to act like spring.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
really brings everybody's mood around. You
oh
know?
man, like a buddy of mine said, he said anybody who doesn't believe that seasonal depressive disorder is a thing
Mm.
should spend a winter or two in Carbon County, Wyoming. And
Shit, man. It was so wet and damp and like gloomy all winter and cold. Fuck, it was cold there for a while. But the hell of it was it would freeze really hard at night. And then I think there may be a week where it didn't get above freezing, but then it usually like get just above freezing, enough for it to melt off a little bit and then refreeze overnight. And, new ruts, and
oh yeah,
like you just couldn't even get a horseback in these feedlot pins, just
oh for sure. Like we kind of had a similar deal where when we started thawing out and it'd freeze at night, and we're about a month behind. Yeah, maybe 3 weeks. 3 weeks or a month behind when we would normally be getting sorted up and turned out.
mm-hmm.
And sorting, because we kind of bring everything to the pins, and we usually sort about 3 ways depending. And oh man, those pins were miserable.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucked, and it was just I spent the winter afoot, which that's the worst thing for any guy that works a horseback. Like spending extended time afoot is the worst.
Absolutely.
I was we went we went to the ocean over spring break, and we were walking back up to the car, and it was like, I don't know, like half mile or something like that. And my little boy was just like, he was like, it's pretty fun. I said, yeah, and if next time we come back to the ocean, we're coming on horseback. And he's like, why? And it's like, because we're cowboys. We don't like to walk. And he's like, I don't like to walk either. I was all right. Well, that's the first step in becoming a cowboy.
Oh, you bet. Yeah. Well, and like a good buddy of mine gets up and runs every morning.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah, it'd probably be good for me, but if you ever see me running, you better run too.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to get into the workout deal. I just like I'm coming up on 40 here pretty quick, and the beer belly's not gonna be getting smaller, I don't think, unless I like make a concerted effort to keep it
Yeah.
off. Like it's a little harder to shed 20 pounds in the summer. Like I used to be able to do that like 3 weeks I'd be down, down 20 pounds, and I'd be in my at my fighting weight all summer, and then
Yep.
bulk back up in the winter. And I still
That
I still shed some weight in the spring and summer, but not like I used to.
the swing's getting a little smaller.
Yeah, 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 the bulk's getting a little heavier, and then the shed's not as good. So yeah, I've been trying to get into the workout regime, and that, yeah, I'm not a fan of what the working out.
Yeah. I've kind of been off again, on again this winter, and I kind of need to get back. But the upside to that is I kind of don't have to now, because now I'm getting out and getting around my country and building fence and doing all that good stuff. So
Yep. That's exactly right.
So
Yeah.
it'll kind of take care of
Once
itself. But
once you get in the saddle again, it's yeah, you well, and when you have daylight to do shit too, that's another thing is you just don't have time to do anything in the winter because
oh
it's
yeah, well, and that was one of the worst things here is when the days started getting longer, but our
mm,
weather didn't get any better,
yeah,
and that was when I really started to go crazy as I was, because I'd go out and feed and do whatever I had to do and could do. But I was like, good grief, I have daylight, I have time, but I can't get around and do anything.
yep,
And
yeah.
that's started getting bad.
Oh, it was like we'd get a couple nice days in a row and think, all right, maybe shit's gonna start to dry out, and then he'd come in and just dump some more snow on us. And you're just like, fuck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kept telling one of the truckers that hauls our sale barn calves. You probably know him, but Dennis was. I was telling myself, I'm getting a sudden urge to grow my hair long and start playing grunge music. I feel like I'm in fucking Seattle right now. Just is this what it's like to live up there? Just gloomy all the time. It's no wonder they're so fucking weird up there. It's
Oh yeah. Yeah,
that all.
when you don't get enough daylight and it gets bad. And so funny story on that. The first winter that I spent out here, which I've been out here for 2 winters now.
Mm,
And the first winter is more winter than I'd ever really seen, but for this country it wasn't much of a winter, you
yeah.
know. And I guess it would have been, let's see, would have been about February. I called a buddy of mine up the road and I was like, dude, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, and I was telling, and he goes, dude, you have cabin fever. Like, it's a thing.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is your first winter out here. It's going to happen. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. And, but it was, and then this winter, like, I've got it a couple times and now I recognize it when it's coming on. But it was real funny that first winter. I was not. I was like, am I like? Do I need to go to the doctor? Like, what the hell is going on here? You know, I'm just getting depressed, no energy, and then I'll have way too much energy for a short period of time. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Oh, it's wild like that. Yeah, I mean that's why so many guys started like braiding rawhide and shit. That stuff
Oh, for
takes
sure.
time. And yeah, when you're just cooped up all winter, you got to do something to pass the time. That's why
Yeah, I
most cowboys are so well read. There's nothing else to do in the winter.
that's a fact. That's a fact. That's all I read and kind of the other thing I decided to do this winter is get to where I could actually cook a little bit because I couldn't get to town and get anything decent to eat. And I thought, well, if I'm gonna eat good, I'm gonna have to cook it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be I just kind of throw something in the microwave, but I pay a lot. Like I'm a pretty decent cook, and if I'm gonna take the time to cook something, I'm gonna make sure it's good.
absolutely.
And yeah, so it's yeah. Then when I was up in Montana, I read and read and read and read. I watched you know the couple times I made it to town before cabin season. I I bought some DVDs and I watched
Yep.
them all over and over again, and then read some more. And it was funniest thing. You could buy Louis L'Amour novels for a penny off of Amazon, but it cost you $4 to ship them.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I'd buy like 6 Louis L'Amour novels for 6 cents, and then get charged $4 for shipping. I think that was, yeah, those were the days before Amazon Prime,
Oh, you bet.
and yeah, and it was and just bitter fucking cold. I've never been so cold in my life as that winter up in Montana. Oh yeah, get some cabin fever for sure.
Oh yeah. What kind of cold? Like how cold would it get?
We had a 17-day stretch where the high never got above -10.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had a
Uh,
little of that this winter.
yeah,
And
ugh, yeah, it
oh
was, and
yeah, that's stupid cold. And we'd get right before Christmas was one of the colder stretches. Well, it was when that big storm system came through. We were on the edge of it. We didn't get hammered by the snow as much, but the one that really hammered like the Dakotas,
mm,
Nebraska, that was system, and we were 40 below, you know. And that's stupid cold.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
I'll never forget because I was trying to get out of here and go home for Christmas for a couple days, and I was looking at the weather and whatnot, and a friend of mine posted on Facebook, and I think it was on the 22nd of December. It was colder in Valentine, Nebraska than it was at the North Pole.
no shit.
And I was like, man, oh man, why do we live out here? But
I know it's a tough. It's most beautiful country on earth is west of the Mississippi River. I think you throw everything west of the Mississippi, all the way to the Pacific. I think that's the most beautiful country on earth. I haven't seen a whole lot more of the world than that, but in my humble opinion, that's the most beautiful country on earth. But boy, it's some of the toughest to live in, though.
oh yeah,
It's
and yeah, and
it
like
takes a hard people.
absolutely, and like we say here, because people come here in the winter, whatever, and be like, why in the world do you live here? It's like, well, from June through September, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It's
you just have to put up with the winters.
right. I mean, like like around here. I mean, it's like spring's been a long time coming, but when it finally hits, and like the snow's melting off, everything's green, and you still got a bunch of snow up top. I mean, it is like and then the sagebrush is going to be just like extra green this year. It seems
Oh
like,
yeah.
and everything smells good, and yeah, it's hard not to love it. And then there's days where it's like, fuck, I wish I worked in a cubicle right now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then I don't know. Then you go sit in city traffic for 20 minutes. I'm cured of any any thought of that. Oh, uh,
That's for sure. Like, and it's been a while since I went down there, but like if you got to drive through Denver or something,
yeah, yeah.
um,
Denver's and then when you talk to people that like live in the actual cities, L.A. or Phoenix or Chicago or New York or something, they're like, "Oh, Denver traffic's nothing." And I thought Denver traffic. I don't get too much anxiety, but Denver traffic gave me anxiety for a long time.
yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're going through there with a trailer load of horses or something.
Yeah, yeah, it's I don't like driving through the cities. I'll do it, but I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah, it's overrated for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's yeah. There's not many places in the West they're easy places to live. Like there's a lot of beautiful country out there, but it's comes at a price.
No doubt. Well, that's why I told somebody somebody one time, we were talking about California and how it got to, and I there's a hell of a lot of cool country and a hell of a lot of good people in California,
Mm-hmm.
but California's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's why it got to be that way, is because everybody wanted to live there.
Yeah. Yeah, when we were driving, um when you come over 88 and you go through like Santa, all the way down to like Santa Rosa,
Okay.
and everything was green, and I'm just like, I get why people move here. I understand it 100%.
Oh yeah.
And I was telling my wife, so I just want to catch a long trot and go see what's on the other side of that hill. Like I want to go find cows on the other side of that hill, and then the one on the other side of that. It was like the grass, the side of the hill just looked spongy, like it was
Yep.
so green. It's like I feel like it's gonna, yeah, it's got like some sponginess to it.
Yeah. And talking about pretty country, I don't think there's anywhere prettier than California in the springtime.
Yeah, I've said it plenty of times on here that like that, yeah, California is the most beautiful place on earth. I mean, it
Yep.
has everything. That coastal highway is fucking amazing. And we only drove like 20 minutes of it. I was like, I want to start down in San Diego and take it all the way up, and
Oh
and
yeah.
just to
Yeah,
see
that'd
the
be
country.
that'd be pretty dang cool.
Yeah. That's also another one. Can you imagine being like the first white guys pulling into San Francisco Bay, and just seeing that,
Uh,
without any buildings and shit. It's like, man,
well,
that
and not and I'm not anti trees for any means, but imagine California before they put the almonds and all that in, when all it was grass.
oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like the trees were in the hills, and then like, yeah,
Yeah,
that
it was just the oak trees and stuff. But before they went to farming, like, hmm,
yeah, that when you had like the old ranchos,
yeah.
like the old land grant ranches from the Spaniards. I mean, man, that had to have been cool.
Well, and it's similar, like, we were talking about the prairies and whatnot. Like, it's kind of a cruel irony, if you like, all the best cow country in the world also happens to be where you can farm the easiest.
Yeah, and that's the craziest thing about the high plains is it turns out you really can't farm it that easy. And if they
Right,
would if they would
right.
have left it to grass, man, you could like ranchers could have thrived there, you know, quite a
Oh,
bit.
yeah, yeah. Easy being relative, I should
Yeah.
say.
But the population would have never taken off. It'd have been like,
Right.
like King County, Texas, where there's the 4 6s and that's it. I mean, there'd be like most of eastern Colorado would be like that. Most of western Kansas would be like that.
Yeah.
The
And
Texas
that's
Panhandle was like that for you know the Panhandle held out the longest, but still, even then, it all got broken up into quarter section, half sections, and
Yep.
and people try to farm it. They're still trying to farm it, but man, if they would have just left it in the grass,
Yep.
like, yeah, like that buffalo grass, man, cows do good on it. It is, and it doesn't take a lot of rain for it to really grow well. And ah, instead
T-
they're trying to grow wheat and corn.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that's cool about the sandhills in Nebraska,
Mm-hmm.
is they got there and after they got their asses kicked, they figured out that they literally couldn't farm it.
Mm-hmm.
And and like I said, I'm not anti-farmer. So, I mean, somebody's got to grow grain for my horses, but
Mm-hmm.
that is so cool to me that they just cannot farm the sandhills.
Yep. And it's some
And
of the best cow country on earth.
oh yeah, and good grass and high water table. And a
Mm-hmm.
buddy of mine's working out there right now, and I've been out there a couple times to see him, and I was like, good grief, this is pretty cool country.
Yeah, it really is.
But
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
go ahead, you're good.
I say, yeah, it's and they're like, they're still smaller, like smaller pastures, smaller parcels and whatnot. There's no real public land to speak of. But it's just, yeah, that Sandhills area, like there's not much else you can do with it except run cows, and
Yep.
run cows they do, and they do well at it.
Yeah, they do. It's pretty dang cool country. Going back to talking about like trying to farm country that you shouldn't. Have you ever read much Elmer Kelton?
Yeah, I love Elmer Kelton. He's the day the time it never rained, the
Yep.
day the Cowboys quit. Yeah, those are he's
I
a
go ahead.
he's a hell of an author. I really enjoy him.
Yeah, I'd never read any Elmer Kelton until this winter, and a buddy of mine that I work with is like, you should really.
Yeah, he's excellent author. I as there's I'll send me your address when we're done here, and I'll pass this book on to you. But the worst hard time. I don't know if you've ever read it. You there? I think
You there? Are you
there we
there?
are. I got
Yep.
you now.
Yep. I was hearing you. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Okay. Well,
Or who wrote it?
Timothy Egan.
Yeah, I don't know if I have read it, but it sounds familiar.
So it's on the Dust Bowl, and so the author interviewed some people that I knew.
Mm.
And anyway, yeah, we'll send me your address when we get done. I'll send you this book. I'll lend it out to you, and it's a good one. But it just goes to, and he tells the story of like how it got settled, and like how there was this big land boom with the Homestead Act, and like there was a bunch of Germans that came over from, they were
Right.
like they called them Volga Germans. They were on the Volga River, which was kind of over by Russia, I guess. But they all farmed wheat, and that's the thing is when it rains, you can grow a hell of a wheat crop, dry land.
Yeah.
But when it don't, you can't grow much of anything. And
Yeah.
except for that buffalo grass, the native grass grows
And,
really well, and it's very
if you
drought tolerant.
and if you tear up your sod,
Yep. That wind just never stops blowing, and yeah, there goes your topsoil.
yeah. Well, yeah, like it's in I think it's in The Good Old Boys, the Elmer Kelton.
Mm.
And he said I say it's wrong to make a man plow out a field to hold his claim. He he ought not rip up land that God's already planted to grass.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing is if you didn't plow it up, you didn't, make so-called improvements on it, uh, you lost your claim. And they didn't consider a fence an improvement. But you had to plow it up or something.
Yep.
And well, don't give them the land in the first place if it, like looking, hindsight's 2020, but looking back on it, you're like, maybe they should have just left it to ranching and because that's that was one of the biggest man-made disasters in the history of the world. Was
Yep.
the Dust
Oh
Bowl.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
like the weather's gonna do what the weather's gonna do, but um, the weather has no effect on you tearing up the ground and leaving it leaving the dirt to blow. I mean, only reason
Yeah.
the dirt blew was because you turned it over.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's that was I mean there was times where there was dust settling on the windowsills in New York City from
I heard that, and another interesting thing talking about plowing and losing topsoil. And it's been long enough ago that I heard this that I can't remember the figures. But when the first explorers, settlers, whatever, were riding through the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia, they said there was grass tall enough that a man a horseback could reach out level without having to reach down and grab a handful of grass and tie it in a knot.
gee, that is grass now.
I mean, because you think about what kind of soil and how much rain they get back there, and it was,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
and that's of course, the Shenandoah Valley is big time farming country now, but back then it was just grass.
Yeah.
And
That's
then,
that's wild.
and I don't remember the year that, like from when they, because like I said, it's been years ago that I heard all this, but from when they started farming and plowing it up, all the oyster and mussel, one of those clamfish,
Mhm.
all the shellfish population in the Chesapeake Bay was virtually wiped out, and
Really?
floor of the Chesapeake Bay raised so many feet because of all the topsoil that washed downstream.
Holy shit. Huh. That's interesting. So that's
And
why like that
I may have
Mississippi.
to go back down that rabbit hole and try and find those figures. It's been a long time since I thought of that, but
Well, it makes sense though, because that'd be like why the Mississippi Delta
yeah,
is such rich farm country because you get all that topsoil coming down from essentially Canada all the way
yep,
down, and it settles there in that Delta region, Louisiana, Mississippi, and
yep.
that's crazy. I was also reading. So there's this. It's a book, but it's really like a collection of letters and speeches from this guy. They called him Roddy, but it was like Roger Shield. They called him Roddy Shield, and he was a cattle buyer back in the 1800s, late 1800s during the beef boom, and he was talking about how you know Kentucky's known as the bluegrass state, but it's not even native to Kentucky. It originated around in like Indiana.
Huh.
Yeah, and during one of like the I don't know if it was the War of 1812 or something, but like one of the armies that had to march down from like Cincinnati to somewhere there in Kentucky, they or somehow is the soldiers like they uh they ended up taking seeds back to Kentucky and planting it there because the climate was perfect for it. And but they had to clear all the trees and shit for it. Like it was
Right.
all hardwood forests and kind of the way like Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, all that, which is good farm ground now, but that used to be heavily wooded.
Right.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it's crazy like the when it comes to, I guess, as far as the white man goes, because the Indians they just moved as they needed to. And
Yep.
but as far as the white men go, making cities and stuff and then clearing land to grow food for the cities.
Yep.
Uh like
Grow grain.
yeah, and yeah, it's just funny how and I guess kind of like the eastern Kansas is kind of that same way. Like they're always fighting them oak trees and like scrub oaks that
Oh, really?
that pop up, and I wonder if that's just kind of native to that country. Is
Probably so.
it's wild. It's interesting country we live in, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
I there's a lot of parts of the world that I want to learn about, but there's still a lot here that I need to learn about first, you know.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
and we've been around for not very long compared to the rest of the world, and there's still a lot that I want to learn about. You know, there's like I need to get some more Florida guys on it and talk about the Florida Cracker Cowboys. And
Oh,
there's 'cause that's pretty big cow country down there too. Like
yeah.
the
Yeah, for
biggest
sure. There's a lot of cows down there.
biggest ranch in the country is in Florida, and it's owned by the
Yep.
Mormon Church.
Deseret.
Hmm. Yeah, it's Mormons. I did not realize. I mean, I knew they were always kind of big players in the cattle world. You know, they the Deseret's got a pretty decent sized feedlot there in Kansas, and
Mm.
but then yeah, then when I was researching into that Easter Day deal, well, it was the Mormon Church that bought out that Easter Day operation, and up in Washington, and yeah, like Mormons have always been pretty big in the cattle business.
Oh, yeah. Yo,
Yeah.
you talking about hold on. I'm trying not to go down multiple rabbit trails at once.
Mhm.
Uh I had a guy tell me last year, that works for Deseret. 1 in 4 French fries is
Really?
produced by the Mormon Church.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Well,
And
they are
and
pretty
there's
big up in Idaho, so that makes
yeah,
sense.
there's some other statistic, but that's the one that stuck out because if you think about how many French fries,
Mhm.
I mean that's a lot. But talking about Mormons in the cattle business, there's a book. I'm trying to remember what it's called, One Man's West, and I can't remember the author's name, but you've been talking about Western Colorado,
Mhm.
and that's where he was, and he was talking about, and they went, and it would have been back in like the 40s, 50s, and they would go buy replacement heifers from a guy in eastern Utah.
Mhm.
And they said he was one of the first Mormon cowboys because a lot of them raised sheep, but
Yeah.
they say he kind of started the Mormons in the cattle industry. And it was real good book.
One man's west.
Yes, and it's sitting right over here. I'll go see who wrote it. By
One David
David.
Lavender.
Yes, sir. That's the one.
Nice. I'm
And
gonna put that on my
that's a
list.
good one.
I'm gonna put. So I don't think I ever got all the way through it, but I was listening to an audiobook. It was called Polygamy on the Pedernales, and it was talking about a Mormon sect that um it was like a splinter group off like the original Mormons there in Nauvoo, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And he went down to Texas with and he was but he did not get along with Brigham Young. And so like they were like their own branch of Mormonism down there, but
Okay.
they were full polygamist and everything and like but he was like he was true to Joseph Smith, didn't like Brigham Young. Um but he was responsible for sending one of the first beef herds to Utah.
Hmm.
And so that's the thing about the Mormons, they sent those missionaries fucking everywhere. They still
Yep.
do. I mean, they are everywhere, and so they're always there was always like a little bunch of Mormons popping up everywhere, and then Brigham Young said, come to Utah."
Well, I mean, and shoot, we talked about California, but I've always said, like, if you go through Utah and there's dang sure a lot of desert, but I always said, man, they picked a dang good place to stop because Utah is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. There's Utah's pretty good country, and the funny part of it is they picked Utah because it wasn't in the U.S. And then immediately as they started settling there, the U.S. went to war with Mexico and won Utah, and they're like, shit.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. Uh,
Yeah, it's but yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like I got a good appreciation for those history guys that strictly do history podcasts like Dan Carlin. Like,
oh yeah, yeah. I
man,
haven't listened to much of his in a while, but I've listened to quite a few of his, and I really
he
enjoy it.
is so good. But I when I started down this path of trying to do the Mormon migration story, and you just go from book to book to book to book, and you're like, "Shit, I'm not even really sure where to start with all this." It's like that's why Dan Carlin is like a master of what he does.
Yeah, he's something else.
Yeah, those are like, and then like this meat packing deal that I've been researching too, and it's same thing. It's I will say though, it's way easier to find stuff on the Mormons than it is on the meatpacking industry because while the Mormons were pretty secretive, they wrote everything down.
Yep, they kept excellent records, still do.
Yeah, and the meatpackers did too, but they would lose records when it suited them. They'd be
Yeah,
like, "Oh, there's another fire in the packing house." Um,
yeah.
so like there's yeah, it's a little harder to find find some like good research material on that. There's and the problem with on the Mormon side is there's so much out there when you start digging because there
Oh yeah, it would have to be overwhelming, I'd imagine.
it can be because not only did the Mormons keep excellent records, everybody from like 1840 or so till 1900 about hated the Mormons too. So for
Right.
every book that the Mormons wrote, there was another book denouncing the Mormons. So there's a lot out there, like a whole bunch.
I'll bet.
Um, and my deal is like I don't even really care about the religion that much. Like the polygamy and stuff, some of the weirder stuff is fun to kind of delve in on. But more than anything, they went from settling in Salt Lake City, or staking out their claim in Salt Lake City there, and within I think 5 years, um, they had 20,000 people living there.
Yeah.
and you're just like, holy shit. And then they were instrumental in the building of the Transcontinental Railroad,
Right.
and they kind of went to war with the U.S. Army, eventually lost, but they gave them hell for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
and and they were also like, hey, if the U.S. Army invades, burn everything and head to the hills. I'm like, I kind of respect it. They're like, fuck you,
Oh,
you ain't getting any of our stuff.
yeah, that's a pretty good way to go about that, really.
Yeah, I always respect it. They're like, we may not beat you, but you ain't getting any of our shit either. We'll burn it before
Mhm.
you get it. It was I don't know. It's an interesting story, and so like one of these days it's gonna be a hellacious podcast series.
You bet.
Just it might take years to get there. Well, it's already taken years. I haven't got much closer than when I started, but I've read a lot of books.
Well, there you go. That's got to be worth something.
Yeah, it is. Oh, well, it gives me appreciation for those guys too. It's that also when you delve into any religion, there's a lot of weird shit written in those holy books that like even the people that subscribe to those religions are like, I don't know. I don't have a good explanation for why it says that. Times were
Mhm.
different, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I feel like a lot of the Mormon guys are like that too. Just like I wasn't around when they made the religion. You know, they're like, that's just what we do.
Yeah. Mm.
It's there's a lot of good cowboys out of Utah. I've I've had a chance to work with several of them, and the ones I have are pretty damn handy.
You bet.
Where's so you've kind of been around quite a you're a single guy, right?
Yes, sir.
Single, ready to mingle, ladies. Hit him up on the gram. Um, but
Four
so,
four-wheel drives required.
yeah, yes. Um, but you've kind of bounced around a little bit in your day, haven't you?
Yeah, a little bit. Mostly around like mostly worked in Nevada and here, but I've I am always down to make a trip somewhere. You know,
Yeah,
like so I've seen a lot of places and been around a lot of places that I haven't necessarily worked. You
yeah.
know, but
That's kind of like I've punched cows quite a few places, but I've seen a lot, and then the cool thing about the internet and social media in particular, like the cowboy world, it's a lot bigger than you would expect, and then you get on Facebook and you get in some of these groups, and then you're like, oh, okay, so then it shrinks down a little bit, um, but there's still a lot of good cowboys out there,
oh yeah,
and and it's always been one of my favorite things about this podcast, just talking from guys from different parts of the country and how they do things and why they do things, and you know, um, I don't know. I've always said it too. Just like a hand is a hand, and a hand can see that, and
yes.
so like you can always tell. I think I was talking with Tuffy the other night, and it's like, you know, even at a bar, like you could see some guy that's all punched out to the gills, got all the right stuff on, you know, got the leather jacket with the or the you know the jean jacket with the leather collar,
Oh yeah.
got the handmade boots and you know looks the part, and then there'll be another guy with like a dirty pearl snap shirt and you know Converse or something, and you're like, something about the way the guy in the Converse holds himself tells me he can swing a rope pretty good, you know,
You-
and like it's I don't know, you get a feeling from certain guys just the way they carry themselves, like he's wearing some nice stuff, but I don't know if he can actually go, you know, stick it to one.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and so it used to be like it's cool. Like the more you get around, like you grow up in a certain area. So like say you grew up here in Nevada, and you see somebody with a taco hat, and you're like, well, that guy doesn't know shit. And then like the more you get around guys with taco hats, they're like, well, there's some pretty handy motherfuckers down there. And same way with me, like it was a lot of a lot of taco hats and not a whole lot of tying on hard, but some. Um, but you see a guy packing 60 foot of rope and a flat hat, and you're like, he's one of those snobby buckaroo types, and that that whole stereotype is there for a reason. There some of these buckaroo types are the most uptight motherfuckers I've ever met in my life. They are handy, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of them that are just some uptight sons of bitches.
Oh yeah. It's kind of my personal opinion. Like, and even worse than Facebook is TikTok. I don't know if you're
Oh,
on TikTok.
I don't do much on. I used to be on it, and I think I'm too old for it. Is
I got on there after I broke my leg when I was stove up and bored out of my
mm,
mind, and it is unreal. And not to knock anybody from anywhere, but basically what I've decided in a nutshell, what the quote unquote cowboy side of TikTok is for them. I mean, there's some cool shit on TikTok, don't get me wrong, but is a bunch of guys from Arkansas and Missouri that got
oh,
themselves a taco hat and a horn knot and think that makes them a cowpuncher,
uh,
and a bunch of guys from Wyoming and Nebraska that bought a 60-foot cotton rope and a flat palm leaf and think that makes them a buckaroo.
yeah. I mean, anybody can buy the hat. Anybody can buy the rope, and honestly, anybody can uh catch a bovine with a rope. It's all what happens when the rope comes tight. that
Yes,
that's when it separates, because anybody can get lucky and catch one at any given point.
yes. And another thing, and it was kind of funny because like we were talking earlier, I'd pretty well just been around Nevada and a little bit in California. Never worked in California, but I've been around California quite a bit. And I'd seen guys pack shorter ropes or whatever, and but kind of a long rope slick horn was always the predominant style that I was around, and that's just what I was used to. And come out here, guys do a little bit of everything, but there were a bunch of guys out here when I first came out here. Some of the guys I got around that kind of wanted to talk shit about long rope slick horn guys, and I was like, well, what the fuck is your guys' problem? And then
Hmm.
I got around a couple guys that had just decided that they were going to be long rope slick horn guys, but didn't know what they were doing.
Uh,
And I was like, oh, I get it now.
yeah, yeah,
Because,
because that's just about 20, about 35 extra foot of rope that you can get caught up in.
well, exactly. Just, and this is going to come as, I mean, some people, this would come as a surprise, apparently. Just because you have 60 foot of rope doesn't mean you need to dally on the end of it all the time.
No, no, and like there's nothing wrong with necking something real short and then running your rope out there about
Yeah.
30 foot and
Yeah.
and letting them choke down a little bit, and saves on your horse. I love the long rope. I really do.
Oh, 100%.
I I grew up dallying on rubber and then occasionally tying hard, and I've done all three. I've done everything except like the Argentine gaucho style, and tied hard to your cinch ring. Like that's the
Yeah.
only style of roping I haven't done. and
And they
I
do that with a long rope too. Like that's
I know it. That's crazy. It's crazy. And then I mean then you can I guess the Mongolians don't really herd cattle much, but man, I bet if they did, they'd be the best cowboys on earth.
I tell you, talking about going like that is one place I would love to go.
That would be cool. I kind of wish we weren't semi at war with Russia right now because I'd kind of like
Yeah.
to go over there.
Yeah, that would kind of
And
put a in it.
yeah, but yeah, you watch some of those videos from the Mongolian types and
Oh
fuck
yeah.
that like you think an Indian can sit a horse really well. Like yeah, go look at some of those Mongolians or like the Afghan types,
Yeah.
like just those steppe people.
Oh, there's a book for you. On the Trail of Genghis Khan.
Okay. Okay. There's another one. It's not so much horse centric, but it kind of is. But it's called The Greatest Game, and it's about when the Brits tried to take over Afghanistan.
Ooh, you bet.
And it's interesting. Like that
I'll
that
bet
whole region
that'd be good.
that whole region of the world, like man, they beat the two most powerful armies. Well, three in a row, back to back to back. They beat the three most powerful armies in the world at the time: the Brits, the Russians, and then us.
Yeah.
And and they did it with essentially a bunch of goat herders.
Yep.
And you're just like, you want to hate those people, but at the same time, you're like, man, I respect the shit out of it. Like,
Absolutely.
those Taliban fucks are kind of some evil motherfuckers, but they beat us. And then I read something the other day that the Russians were trying to buy a bunch of the weapons that we left over there, and the Taliban told them to go pound sand. And then China tried to cozy up with them and get them to let them open a lithium mine there, and they told China to pound sand too. And I was like, fucking Taliban don't play, dude.
No, that's a fact.
And you're like, man, I hate those people, but fucking, respect.
They're good at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to respect it. You're like, well, and you know what? They're consistent. They told everybody to fuck off.
You bet.
It's crazy. Well, hey, you got like another 20 in you?
Oh yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna take a leak, and we'll call it good for the main episode. We'll come back and do a little bonus for the Patreon folks.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, you got anywhere that you want people to follow you on social media, or are you good?
If they want, they can go follow my Instagram. It's which I think I have it set up to where you have to send a request, but it's Wade and Spade.
Oh, that's right, Wade and Spade.
Yeah, and I think I have a 98 on there too. I think it's Wade and Spade 98.
Either way, search him up, Caleb Holley. He's you post some pretty cool pictures from time to time, and you've got some you're friends with some really good photographers too, and they've taken some really cool pictures of you over the years.
Yeah, they make me look better than I am.
Hey, that's all that matters. Anyways, Caleb Holley, this has been a fun time. Go check him out, and thanks everybody for tuning in. If you'd like to hear the rest of the conversation, I know you want to. Cost you $5. Patreon.com/Burnin Daylight. It's the best way to help out the show. Helps me be able to go put on shows in Elko. Hopefully doing one in South Carolina this summer. Helps me go meet some cool people like Boots O'Neill, and you add to the quality of my life as well, because I get to meet some really cool people, talk to some really cool people, and continue doing this cool thing that I really enjoy. So thanks everybody that has signed up, and everybody that will sign up. Caleb, been fun, and we'll be back for the Patreon side of things. Everybody else, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning beneath the stars so bright. Cold chill up your spine, we'll get your ass moving, son. We're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Burning